Competitive pistol shooters and competitive rifle shooters shoot in excess of 150,000 rounds per year. At these volumes, reloading is a necessity, not just for economy, but to get exactly the performance you want for competition. For decades, Dillon has set the standard for personal and prosumer high-volume reloading equipment. Gavin here from ultimatereloader.com. In this video, we're going to take a look at the very latest press from Dillon Precision, the XL-750, which is an improved version of the XL-650. With this video, I'm going to go deeper and in more detail than in any other video I've done or anyone else has done covering a progressive reloading press. We're going to start with an unboxing. We're going to set up the machine. We're going to take a look at all of the different systems that are a part of this press system. We're going to take a look at the powder measure. We're going to take a look at the tool heads and the die stations. We're going to take a look at the priming system. We're going to look at caliber conversion kits. We're going to talk about everything that comes with the press. We're going to unbox the case feeder. We're going to put the two together. I'll load some rifle ammo. This is set up for 223. We'll do a caliber changeover. It's going to be 45 ACP pistol ammo. That will of course include the primer size changeover. And I'm also going to talk about things like total cost of ownership, pros and cons. You're going to want to make sure you're subscribed with notifications because I've got more content coming up, including an in-depth comparison between the XL-750 and the XL-650. Let's get started by unboxing the press. Let's get this box open. And what I like about Dillon is that they put quite a bit of care and attention into their packing in general. These are like formed foam. Okay, so we've got instructions. I'm gonna kind of tilt this so that you guys can see from the side here. Okay, couple bags. This is that formed foam. Okay, the vertical for the case feed. We've got the press handle. We've got powder measure, drop tube. Okay, this is such a big box. Okay, can you guys see that? I hope so. Okay, very familiar from the XL650, which I originally put my content up about 10 years ago for. There we go. I mean, it would be almost impossible to damage this in transit, I believe. Okay. And you can see here inside the box, we've got literally, and there's the main unit, we've got literally the other side of the press molded into the case foam. So let's actually lay everything out here. Love to see this brand new stuff here. Press comes with one caliber conversion kit. And as I mentioned, this is 223. So the parts are going to be pre-installed on the press. And if we open the case, this is where those caliber conversion kit components will go. That way, when you get multiple caliber conversion kits, you're going to have that box. You're going to put the other parts on when you're loading different calibers, and these parts that are pre-installed on the press have a place to go. Look at this book. This is quite extensive. Nice color pictures of pretty much every step in the process of setting up the press, of getting it ready to reload, and then we've got kind of a quick start guide. Again, with really nice high quality photos. That's going to be super helpful as well. Got one more box here. The accessory parts. Okay, so this is the discharge chute where the rounds are going to come flying out into the completed cartridge bin. The completed cartridge bin itself. I know, you guys are wanting to see the press, aren't you? Me too, but wanted to get kind of all of the main bags open. Okay, there's some parts for the support bar for the case feed assembly. What's interesting about the XL-750 is that it comes pretty much ready to roll to feed cases. It just doesn't have the collator and the case feed plates. So I wanted to show you both in this video because they're really meant to go together. Oh wow, look at that. That is a beauty. Ho ho. Trying to show you guys the best I can here. It's a little bit awkward, but I want to make sure that you can see all of the different parts and pieces as they are packed. It looks like one of our tool head pins here is holding this extra parts. There we go, it's a little stiff. Parts bag there, put that back in. Okay, there's the press. Really, really nice finish. The classic Dillon blue that you all are familiar with. Okay, so that's the main press assembly, the powder measure. We've got primer pickup tubes. We've got the return bar for the powder measure. Looks like we've got the low primer sense here. That's nice. We've got an extra slide bar for the powder measure. Before I put the press together, I want to really quickly run through the box contents once again, now that I've had a chance to lay everything out all neat and tidy. Of course, we've got the main press assembly itself. We've got the completed cartridge bin, spent primer catcher. This is the discharge chute. Little completed cartridges are going to go rolling down that like a water slide. And then we've got the press handle itself. This is the drop tube for the case feed system, which again, the press comes with everything except the motorized collator bowl. So you can actually drop cases in and it will insert them. Extra primer slide, this is for large because we've got small installed for 223. A complete set of Allen keys for all of the different Allen screws and bolts on the press. We've got 2 primer pickup tubes. These are great because they have the soft pickup tube area on the ends, the soft ends, and they work really good. They're really easy to push onto the primers and they grip them well. So we've got large and small there, and then we've got the large primer tube itself, the one that sits inside the shield. The small one is installed. We've got the large one here, some extra parts. We've got the low primer warning buzzer and a Duracell battery. That's a nice touch. We've got the primer rod that kind of visually shows you how much is in the tube and keeps some added weight on the stack of primers. The powder measure, the return bar, we've got an extra powder slides. We've got large and small included with the kit. And then we have all of the case feed components. The mounting hardware, this is the support bracket that keeps it spaced from the press, the bar itself, and the drop tube. We've also got the case for the caliber changeover components that aren't installed on the press. Shell plate is installed. We've got part of the case feed drop here. We've got the buttons that hold the shell casings in place at each of the station, and then the powder drop tube for the powder measure itself. Quick start guide, full instruction book. It's time to start putting this press together. Mounting and assembling the press is probably going to take you about 15 to 20 minutes. And what you have to decide first is how you're going to mount the press to the bench. A few different options. I'm using the inline fabrication ultra mount system here with the quick change top plate because I have many different presses here and this is what I use in the shop. Dillon also makes a strong mount that looks kind of like this, and then you can also use the 4 holes in the press frame to bolt it directly to your bench. That's up to you. So I tightened down the press frame to the quick change top plate. You sandwich the discharge chute in place, you get everything lined up, clamp it down. I clicked this in place. I used the 2 thumb screws here to tighten everything down. Now we have the press mounted. Now we can really start to get to work on it. And the first thing I did was to install the mounting bracket for the case feed system, since I'm going to be using the motorized case feed bowl. That's really the sweet spot for this press, and there's just a few things to do. You've got these bolts that go all the way through the press frame. There's these nice caps here that distribute the forces to the round tube here. There's a cross brace for the drop tube for the cases. That goes in place with a single Allen screw. And then we've got the drop tube itself. Just clicks in place. We've got this drop block here that's a part of the caliber conversion kits. That goes in place. And then we'll put that on pause and come back to this when we unbox the case feed bowl. Then it's time to install the handle itself. Now there's a cross-drilled hole through the press handle. We can put an Allen key or a screwdriver, something like that, through the handle to prevent it from rotating while we install the single nut on the bottom. And I like to torque these down. There's a washer that goes on top, goes down through, the nut comes up from the bottom, and if you torque it down enough, it's never going to come undone while you're loading. If you don't torque it enough, it could loosen up periodically, which is just annoying. Then it's time to take a look at the powder measure. The powder measure comes apart with two cap screws. The cap moves out of place, and then you can take the powder die out the bottom. You're going to want to install that in the tool head in position number 2 as shown here, and then you're going to take your funnel, which is an expander for pistol cartridges. This is a rifle cartridge. I'm loading 223 here, so it's just got sort of more of a blunt front on it that the case is going to activate the powder measure with. And there's the fail-safe rod that's going to go in, and I leave the Allen screws on the cap for the powder measure loose so that I can rotate the powder die and get the height set correctly. What you're going to want to do is at the top of the stroke have the powder bar actuated all the way to the back, and then it's time to adjust the fail-safe rod. There's a little wing nut here, a plastic wing nut that you use so that the spring is slightly compressed when the press handle is pushed forward and the ram goes to the very bottom of its stroke as a part of that priming process. We're going to be priming on the downstroke. All that's left to do at this point is to install the single AAA battery in the primer warning system and then push the primer warning main block down into place, and then the rod goes into place, and we can test that to make sure that we're going to get that audible warning when our primers go low. Absolutely love that. Makes it a lot easier to prevent running out of primers. Next is unboxing the case feeder. So here we have the case feeder for the XL-650 or XL-750 in the box. You can get this either 120 or 240 for voltage. This is the 120. Let's see what we've got. Okay, so we've got the bowl, of course. Hopefully you can see this here. Power adapter, instructions. It's got this nice, this is the same kind of molded foam that you have with the XL-750. It's conformed to the components that are packaged, and that means that you're much less likely to have any kind of breakages. Some mounting hardware here. Okay, so it looks like this might indeed be multi-voltage. We've got the adapter, and we've got different international plugs here. And so I'm going to use the one for North America. We're going to go ahead and plug that in. Looks like we're ready to go. So I've got everything out of the box and unpackaged. Let me show you what's included with this variable speed case feed kit. There's the case feeder itself, which has the bowl. The case feed plates fit in here. There's an optional spacer for some pistol calibers that require an offset there. The cases are going to get collated in here and be picked up by the case feed plate. Drops down the funnel here. This is a little bit different than the Dillon case feeder that I have currently. With the 650, there's a 2-speed switch for 2 motor speeds. This is infinitely variable, which is really nice. My old case feeder is also 120 volt, and this is international multi-volt. So this power supply, it appears, can take 120 or 240. And that means that with the included adapters, I just snapped this North American plug adapter here in place. It gives you a degree of versatility that's really nice to have. So I'm going to install this on the press, and then we'll be that much closer to loading ammo. Then it's a matter of installing the case feed bowl on the mounting post, the bracket. I'm going to pull the drop tube forward here. We've got a 5/32 Allen screw here. I'm looking at vertically where that needs to be. Approximately right there. It's going to bottom out pretty much on that plastic bracket. And then we're going to want to click everything in place, make sure that the drop tube is vertical and then give it kind of a final tighten. Then we can plug the power in and turn the unit on. There we go. Once the case feeder was hung, it was time to get the press the rest of the way ready to load 223 Remington. I took off my cross support because with the case feeder in place, you don't need that plastic bracket. I did some zip tie cord routing here to tidy things up a little bit. Then it was time to get dies set up. Now, a complete die setup is outside of the scope of this video, but here I'm using Dillon Carbide 223 3-die set. And that's nice because with the carbide sizer, you have a little bit less friction and you're not going to have to worry about wearing things out. So for high volume loading for 223, this should be an absolutely killer setup. I set up the 3 dies using a cartridge that I had loaded previously, a reliable load that I've shot a whole bunch. I swapped bars on the powder measure from small to large. I could only get up to about 20 grains with the pistol slide. Now I'll show you the slide swap when we go from 223 to 45 ACP, but it just takes a minute. Validated my powder charge, got my brass pins put in place, used the supplied pickup tube to load 100 primers. Those drop right in, and we are pretty much ready to roll. So here's what I'm going to do. I like to keep a step stool nearby when I've got these large case feeders to deal with. We're just going to drop the small rifle case feed plate in place here. I've got my brass that's already been lubed. I'm going to turn the unit on. And let the drop tube fill up. We are ready to load. So we'll start by running the press up. Station number 1, sizing depriming. On the downstroke on station number 2, we're going to prime. We can feel that very solid priming action. Okay, station number 3 we've got empty, and I've got this reserved because we could use the Dillon powder check system if we wanted to there. Station number 4, this is putting our bullet in, seating the bullet, checking the powder level each time, and then station number 5 is crimp. Seems to be working really good so far. Occasional bullet drop there. You can hear the powder drop in the powder dispenser. You want to wait until you hear that stop. Very nice. Bullet feeder would be great with this too. That is a smooth operation. I really like the feel of the priming action. It's very definite and very smooth. It's got good mechanical advantage. So we're going to go ahead and run the press down, and I have this little wire that I've bent into a little C shape, and what I like to do is just put this back here to grab the pivot block, and that's going to basically turn off case feed. And then we can run the press down. Maybe I'll include some specifics in the companion article if you want to make one of those. And this press has on-demand priming. The XL-650 has continuous priming. So I do like that as an upgrade. Look at that. As a little try run, we've made a nice little pile of 223 ammo. I would say it's time to get this press converted over to 45 ACP, and we'll load some 45 ACP. I just finished the caliber changeover from 223 Remington to 45 ACP, and I specifically wanted to choose these cartridges because they're popular, but also because we're going to do both a primer size changeover plus a caliber changeover. So this is going to show all of the different activities in a worst case scenario you're going to have for a caliber changeover. The first thing you're going to need is the actual caliber changeover kit. These are the same for the XL-650 and 750, and it's going to have all of the parts that you're going to need to do a changeover for a specific cartridge. There's 4 different parts for the case feed system. You've got either a drop funnel for rifle or a drop funnel with expander for pistol. You've got the shell plate and the locator buttons. You're also going to want to have a tool head for each set of dies that you have set up. And optionally, you can also add a powder measure so that the whole unit will just slide into the press and you can do a caliber changeover in just seconds, assuming that you don't have to touch the priming system. And actually, Dillon sells different levels of kits. There's a complete caliber changeover kit that includes the tool head, the dies, the powder measure, and all of the other parts. That's going to be a good way to go if you want these dedicated setups for ultra quick changeovers. So that's kind of what's involved from an equipment standpoint. Let's walk through the process of a worst case caliber changeover. I like to start a caliber changeover with the tool head itself. You remove the fail-safe rod from the powder measure, pop 2 pins, and the whole tool head and everything attached to it slides out as a unit. Next, we're going to turn our attention to the shell plate area. The ejector wire pops straight off the top of the hold down bolt in the shell plate. Then we raise the ram, which exposes a set screw on the side. This keeps the hold down bolt for the shell plate from rotating. We crack that open and then unscrew the hold down bolt. That means we can take the shell plate off and put the new shell plate on. There's also the case feed slide plate. We're going to pop off the old one and put the new one in while we have that exposed. That's easiest done when the ram is at the top of the stroke. We can install our new locator buttons, and that pretty much finishes things for the shell plate area. Then we work our way around to the priming system. And the priming system updates for the XL-750 I think are my favorite updates. It comes with both sliders with the spring-loaded cups and punches, and that means it only takes a couple minutes to do the changeover between large and small. There's thumb screws on the bottom that hold the housing down in place on the press. You basically remove those. There's a little spring that fits on the post here. That's the return spring, and you can lift the whole assembly up. You take off the top cap, remove the primer tube, replace it with the one that you're switching to. I was obviously switching to the large one because we're loading 45 ACP here. Tighten the cap back on, drop the assembly back down, tighten the thumb screws, make sure that you reattach the return spring and have the guide rod properly oriented in the press. You've done a primer changeover and it's only been a couple minutes. Great stuff. Next, it's time to deal with the powder measure. The powder measure comes with the rifle slide bar and the pistol slide bar. The pistol slide bar actually has 2 pieces. To switch between the two, you're going to want to remove the powder measure from the press. There's a nut on one side and an Allen screw on the other. You loosen those and then you rotate the cam plates out of the way so that this small square nylon guide block is able to move away from the slide bar. You can then slide the slide bar out, slide in a new slide bar, and then tighten that nut and Allen screw, making sure to place that little nylon square block into the little channel here on the side of the powder bar. And once you do that and you tighten it down just a little bit, you're done with the switchover. It then goes back on the press. You're going to want to make sure that you have your drop funnel or drop funnel expander combo. I use the expander combo in this case because we're loading 45 ACP and we want to flare the mouths of those cases. That's about all there is. You put the fail-safe rod back in, confirm the expansion. I had to do a little bit of an adjustment because this was set up for my XL-650, and then validate the powder charge, off and running. The last thing we're going to take a look at is the case feed system. For the XL-650 and the 750, the caliber conversion kits, which is the same between the two, come with all of the specific parts that you're going to need to optimize the case feed system for whatever specific cartridge you're loading. There's not a lot of adjustments. It's just drop in and go. And I think that's part of why Dillon's case feed system for the 650 and 750, I would say, is the smoothest operating and most reliable. It's optimized. Things just work, and that's great. So we already took a look at swapping out the case insertion guide that goes behind the shell plate. There's just a few more things we have to do. First, I popped off the drop tube. At the bottom of the drop tube, there's a plastic block that fits into the press. And then on the toggle block, there's a little insert, and this is of the appropriate diameter for whatever case we're loading. And then there's a drop tube that screws in to the bottom. That takes care of all of the case feed components that you see when you're loading, but then there's also the feed plate that you drop in the top. When I dropped this one in, it was a brand new large pistol case feed plate, and the clutch was actually just a little bit loose. So when I turned on the press and it was starting to try and load the cases, it was slipping a little bit. All you need to do is tighten the two Allen screws that hold the clutch plates together on the feed plate, and then you're off and running. That's a safety mechanism to protect the case feed unit from damage. After that, my drop tube filled up, everything is ready to go. That's the entire process of a worst case scenario caliber conversion on the XL-750. All of our fine tuning adjustments are done. We are ready to roll. So I'm going to go ahead and run up the press, fill up the stations, sizing and depriming in station number 1, priming on the downstroke in station number 2, powder charge at the top of station number 2, station number 3 is empty, and I will likely put the Dillon powder check system here in station number 3 because it is cheap insurance. Doing a visual powder check, placing a bullet at station number 4, we've got a sizer, and then in our last station, we've got the crimp. Now, with every pull of the handle, we're getting a completed cartridge, and that is music to my ears. Wow, I definitely feel like I'm in the groove here. Things are running really good. So So I'm going to finish the rest of my loading a little bit later. We'll go ahead and put our case feed shutoff clip in place and run the press down. And seat and crimp for the last round. There we go. Again, we've made a nice pile of ammo, zero problems, zero malfunctions. That's the way I like it. So let's talk pros and cons for the XL-750. Starting with pros, quality is definitely at the top of the list, quality and engineering. When you look at this press, when you get it out of the box, I hope this video did it some justice, you'll see right away this is a quality piece of gear. This is a lifetime investment, and Dillon has their no BS warranty. If something breaks, they're going to take care of you. They have great customer service. It's what they're known for. It's a big part of their reputation. I would also say functioning, just in general. Once you get this thing set up, it's on rails. You saw it with the case inserter that I showed. There's a little channel where the case rim slides into the shell plate from the inserter. It's fail-safe. And the case feed system itself is best in class. It's very smooth, it's quiet. I love this variable speed unit, big improvement over the 2-speed unit that I have on my 650, which also works really well. And it just works. I mean, that's a huge pro for the XL-750. Love the updated priming system. That was probably my biggest complaint on the 650. The telephone dial. What was nice about it was self-cleaning and it functioned really well, but it was continuous, not on demand. And so if you're setting up cartridges or something like that, dialing in the stations, you're going to get extra primers flying out. And then also the slide bar type systems keep more of a safety distance between the priming station and the stack of primers. I don't know how you would make this stack of primers go off. It seems nearly impossible to me. So those are some of the pros. Also compatibility with the XL650. Same tool heads, same caliber conversion kits, obviously the same dies. These both use 7/8 by 14 dies, standard reloading dies. And on the con side, I think there would probably just be a couple things. One is cost. This press is a little bit more expensive than some of the other presses, but I think the old adage holds true here. You do get what you pay for. You're paying a bit more, but you're getting a press that's going to be extremely reliable. It's going to hold its value really well. The cost of the caliber conversion kits it's a little bit more expensive as well. And again, this basic model here is that you set stuff up and you slide the tool head in and you're done. And that's a really good model for people that are switching back and forth and don't want to spend the extra time to dial everything in. Last con that I can think of is the tool heads don't give you some of the same flexibility that you have with quick change bushings, like for instance emptying the powder measure. Although you can just remove the fail-safe rod, pull the pins, and take the whole tool head and dump the powder that way. So just minor things, really. One more important thing to cover before we wrap up is total cost of ownership for the XL-750 system. I took a look at current November 2019 pricing at the time of the filming of this video. I have the data written down here, and by the way, I'm going to have in the full write-up a bit more detail and actual links to the products. I broke it down by 3 different scenarios. First scenario, you're going to use the press for 1 caliber and just rock and roll with it. Second scenario, you've got 2 different calibers that you're working with. And the third scenario is 4 different calibers. So with the 4 different caliber scenario, you're buying 3 additional setups to be able to swap out to load different types of ammo. So the press alone with the caliber kit pre-installed is $649.95. The case feeder is $299.95. A caliber conversion kit, which comes with these parts, minus the tool head and minus the slide here, I showed that previously, is $81.95, and the tool head itself, which you're going to want, is $32.95. So the total cost of ownership for 1 caliber with no dies, with the case feeder, is $949.90. I'd say that's a really solid value for what you're getting. Total cost of ownership for 2 calibers, so 1 extra caliber conversion kit and 1 tool head, would be $1,064.80. And for 4 calibers, so 3 tool heads, 3 caliber conversion kits, plus the case feeder, plus the press, is $1,294.60. One note with that is when you buy the case feeder assembly, it comes with 1 case feed plate, either small rifle, large rifle, small pistol, or large pistol. So if you're loading ammo that requires a different case feed plate, you're going to need to factor that into your equation as well. But this gives you a basic idea of what it's going to cost total to get your reloading room set up with the XL-750. So there you go. I hope that you've enjoyed this detailed, in-depth overview of the Dillon XL-750 system. And I'll make some notes. First, I'm going to be putting this right alongside the Dillon XL-650, and I'll walk through all of the differences side by side. I'm going to have more loading stories, and you're going to want to make sure that you check out that reloading press shootout, the progressive press shootout in spring 2020. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications. Click on that little bell. Also, I would like to know what you think. Do you have an XL-750? Are you thinking about getting an XL-750? Do you have an XL-650 and you're wondering if you should upgrade? Drop a comment and we'll discuss. Don't forget, I've got Ultimate Reloader t-shirts at the Ultimate Reloader store. I'm on Patreon. We got a full article with a lot more detail. Links in the video description. Until next time, happy shooting and happy reloading.